I'm excited about this series. This dream series is a powerful series. By show of hands, how many of you have a dream that you are working on? Amen to you, Q. Good. All right. That's just about everybody. That's just about everybody. Now, I don't want to, right at the start of the sermon, I don't want to put anybody on blast, but if by chance you did not have your hand up, let me just invite you to rediscover the dream that you probably put to sleep. Let me invite you to rediscover it. I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that everyone has an assignment that they are to be working on. Ask me, how do I know? Because you are alive. And if you are on this side of the ground, it is because there is still some work to be done, something incredible that God intends to reveal through you. And so if you think that you do not have a dream or you do not have an assignment, there is nothing for you to be working on. I want you to explore your soul and do it in a form that is honest and integral so that you can rediscover the dream, the goal, the vision that you put to sleep and wake that thing back up and tell it it's time to come to pass. Repeat after me, it's time to come to pass. And so on last week, as we were talking about a dream, we said a dream is a work assignment that is offered to us by God. We said that the dream might be pointed in any direction. And so the dream that you have might very well be different than the dream that I have. Your dream might be for improvement in your finances or increase in your finances. It could be to improve your relationships, to have health and fitness that you desire, to have order and peace restored in your family, for your business to increase, for your work to pay you more, your job to pay you more. It could be for you to fulfill your life's purpose. The direction toward which your dream is pointed is secondary to the steps that help you accomplish that dream. Is that all right? And so the work assignment requires your work. It requires your labor. Repeat after me. My dream requires my work. As I said on last week, God more than delights than to give the birds the food, but he never puts it in their nest. They must go from their sacred perch to wherever the food is. Is that right? On last week, we said, just generally speaking, there are two things that stands in the way of the momentum of our dream. Those two things are that there is not enough, the notion that there is not enough or that we are not enough. Those two things are what stands in the way for 99% of the people. Either you think that there is not enough or you believe that you are not enough. But on last week, we discovered that in fact there is enough. And the fact that we don't see it does not mean that it is not there. Remember the exercise from last week? Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. There is enough and you are enough. One of the ways that we reconnect with clarity to the idea that there is both enough and that we are enough is through the decisions that we make. And so we're going to talk about decisions just a little bit more. I also gave you on last week a scripture to work with whenever you find yourself drifting away from the possibilities thinking that is connected to your dream. What was the scripture I gave you on last week? Yeah, so for those of you who took notes, give yourself a star and a smiley face. For those of you who didn't answer that question correctly, give yourself a frown and a star turned upside down. The scripture reference that I gave you to work with on last week is John 15, 1 through 8. Whenever you find yourself drifting away from the possibilities thinking that is connected to the provision that comes connected to your dream, read that scripture. All right? We also said on last week, whenever you give yourself the new picture that is connected to the dream, the acceptance of this picture creates within the soul of each and every one of us what is called structural tension. And structural tension is the tension that exists when a picture of a new possibility presents itself. You, just like everyone sitting next to you, is uncomfortable when there is a possibility that you believe is attainable, but you're not sure you can attain it. And so structural tension presents us with two options. Either we give up on the dream, or we accept the dream and the possibility as real, and we begin to move our soul in a way that helps us bring the dream into manifestation. Are you with me? And so, a dream is a work assignment that we accept from God, and we said on last week that the desire for the dream is the dream in the embryonic state. Yes? We also said, just quick review, that a desire is that which comes from the Father. Robert Kiyosaki says the size of our success and the strength of our desire will determine the degree to which we can experience it, especially if we can experience the difficulty along the way. And so then desire is God tapping at the heart saying, this is what I have for you. And if we can open the door, we can experience that which God has for us. Which takes us to our step for today. How do we become aware of the possibilities, and how do we make ourselves available to the possibilities? We do it through our decisions. Life is decision driven. Repeat after me. Life is decision driven. Raymond Charles Barker said, if there is no excitement in today's thinking, there will be no excitement in tomorrow's experience. And so if the decisions that you make today don't excite and make room for the dream you want to experience tomorrow, there will be no fulfillment of the dream tomorrow if you don't make the right decisions today. Are you with me? And so step 2, decision is key to how you lay the groundwork and pour the foundation for the dream to come into manifestation. Anything that you want to do, have, and be better at requires better decisions. Anything you want to do, have, and be better at requires better decisions. What is a decision? A decision is put this in your notes. You got your pen ready? Or your phone? On your bulletin, on your phone, somewhere. A decision is the creative control and the intentional plan that you establish for what will happen in your everyday life. Let me say that again. A decision is the creative control and the intentional plan that you establish for what will happen in your everyday life. See, many people go through life subject to the winds of how they are to be pushed. But successful people know that the wind that will blow their sails comes from the decisions that they make. And so the successful people are never surprised when they experience success. They planned to be successful. And they plan it in a consistent way, and they are persistent with their insistence on the plan that they have established. So your ability to make decisions is your creative control. When you give away the influence of your decision, you give away the influence of your control. So sometimes you find yourself in places that are unfamiliar, and it's because you've given someone else the control. So a decision is the creative control and the intentional plan that you make that you establish for what will happen in your everyday life. Decision gives us the ability to consistently, say consistently. Decision gives us the ability to consistently select what works and reject what doesn't. Can I share something with you right here? I want to encourage you to, in this very moment, ward off the diseased mindset of complaining. I just want to share that with you. I want to encourage you to, in this moment, get rid of the habit, the inclination, the disposition to complain. Why? Because if you can make a decision, you can accept what works and you can reject what doesn't. You don't have to complain if you can change it. Now, if you can't change it, keep complaining. Maybe you'll complain to somebody who can change your situation for you. So life is decision driven, and the decisions that you make are the triggers that you use for what you will accept and what you will reject in your life. Are you still with me? So we said in our bulletin, let's take the first bulletin point together here. Very good. So to decide means to accept the work order from God. To decide means to accept the assignment from God. To decide means to move in accord with the work order from God. To decide means that I will work in the order in which God is revealing. To decide means that I will move in ways that are consistent with what is required in the work order in order to make the dream manifest. Does your bulletin say that? Because mine says all of that. So then, when we decide, we accept the work order or the assignment. Now, let me just say to you right here, there are really two elements connected with every decision you make. There are two elements connected with every decision you make. There is an objective acceptance and there is a subjective acceptance. Are you with me? For every decision you make, there is an alignment. Say alignment. For every decision you make, there must be an alignment with what you think and what you feel. Yeah. Stay with me. I'm going somewhere real good, Nate. Whenever you make a decision, the inner working of your soul takes the decision that you make and it aligns that decision with the most dominant feeling that you have that is connected to the decision. Let me say it to you again. Every decision you make seeks alignment with a particular feeling. But the feeling that gets the blessing is the most dominant feeling. Why does things happen almost in the twinkling of an eye with some things, but with other things there is more labor? Because with some things, when you think it, the dominant feeling automatically aligns with it and it happens quickly. With other things, you think it, but there is the belief, the dominant belief is, I am not enough, there is not enough, it is not enough, I am not good enough, they told me I can't do it, they told me I can't be it, and so the dominant belief is inconsistent with the decision that you make. Are you with me? And so then, it's like being at the club. It's like being at the club. And there is a person at the bar. According to my cousin anyway. There is a person at the bar. And when you go to the bar, you see the options. Now, this is provided you're the kind of person who gets to the bar and has options. At least according to my cousin. So for some people at the bar, there is something that appeals to what you like. But when you go and approach it and ask it for a dance, it might say to you, or she might say to you, or he might say to you, I'm not really dancing tonight. Are you with me? But then you see 5 or 10 minutes later, the person or the option that wouldn't dance with you is dancing with some other possibility. You with me? Stay with me. See, it seems like this is right in our wheelhouse. It's the same thing in the soul. There are some thoughts that are possible options for where you are in consciousness. Right? See, the person that rejects you not because they don't like you, but because there is no alignment in consciousness. See, if there is no alignment in consciousness, then it doesn't really matter what you desire. It only matters what you have the consciousness to receive. And so God can only do through you what God can do for you, and only God can only do for you what God can do through you. So if you really want to have what you've been praying about, you've got to make decisions that let you expand your consciousness, because the larger your consciousness, the more possibilities you have. See, there are some people who walk in the club and the whole club turned upside down. You can find me in the club. Bottles full of bub. I can't remember the rest of it. I used to know it. I used to know it. But are you picking up what I'm putting down? See, it's about making sure. It's about making sure that whenever you make a decision, you also you got to understand the nuance of your soul. Whenever you make a decision, you have to make sure that the right experience in your feeling nature is aligned with the decision. So when you hear me talking about what's possible, there is no doubt in my mind that some of you say that is not possible. And it's not because of what you're thinking, it's because of what you feel. Are you with me? So then, how do you recondition the feeling? That's a good question. How do you recondition the feeling? Because we can think in alignment, but how do we feel in alignment? Let me tell you about the structure of your soul. So whenever you have an experience, say experience, whenever you have an experience, you have to remember that your subconscious nature is like a video camera. Reverend Coleman would say that it's a tape recorder and it records everything that is happening. The illustration I want to use is like a video camera. And so it captures everything that happens. Are you with me? So there are no inconsequential occurrences in your soul. Everything that happens to you, you decide or you determine what that thing means. Are you still with me? So the structure of the subconscious nature is such that it goes through 3 phases whenever you have an experience. I want you to understand how to recondition your subconscious nature. Are you still with me? Your subconscious nature goes through 3 phases whenever you have an experience. First is just the literal experience. Your subconscious nature records what happens to you. You with me? You drive to church, you encounter somebody on the expressway, they cut you off, and you decide what that experience means to you. But it just records the base experience. The second thing that happens is based upon how you feel about what happened. Oh my goodness. Based upon how you feel about what happens, the subconscious nature will record and then code how you feel about what happened. Are you with me? So one of you shared a story with me about two clients being in your place of business. And these two clients went to grade school together. And one of the clients said to the other client, you know, you said to me some pretty mean things when we were in grade school together. And the stuff that you said really hurt my feelings. So here we are, some 40, 50 years removed from the recorded experience. But a seasoned, mature adult is carrying out and living out the recordings of an experience with an adolescent child. Are you with me? And so it is not the mature mindset, but rather the recorded experience of the adolescent child that is leading the hurt feelings of this well-adjusted adult. And now while we are shaking our heads at her, good Christians that we are, how many of us, like I said last week, are being piloted in the subconscious nature by an 8-year-old who was hurt based on some recording that you accepted of an experience that you had? I know it feels a little different now. I get it. So what you must do then is understand that as you are recording what is happening to you, oh my goodness, I can hear the words of scripture saying, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. How do you transform the experience in the moment? You get to determine how you feel about what happens. Nobody ever makes you angry. They only point the anger out in you. Nobody ever makes you hurt. They only point the hurt out in you. Nobody ever makes you happy or glad. They only point the wholeness out within you. And then you decide how to feel about that interaction. And so what you have to do consciously and intentionally, you have to make the decision. Say, I must make the decision. You have to make the decision to decide how you will code the experience. See, if you will count it all joy, then joy must show up over and over and over and over again. When a rough patch hits you, if you can remember that God was in the valley with me, and just like God brought me out of this, God can bring me out of that, you will find that when the difficulty comes, you have something to hold on to. But you have to know how to code your soul. See, people of power can't afford to let the experience dictate how you will define it. You have to make the decision. There is so much power in your ability to make decisions. But it's one of those things, I just had you repeat a word. It's one of those things that you have to do consistently. You have to do it consistently. Scripture says it this way: guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it come the issues of life. And so I can be a grown man with little boy issues. I can be a grown woman with little girl issues. So you have to know how to make the decisions in the moment. Hear me. When you are in class getting the principle down, I want to challenge you to start more consistently and intentionally taking that stuff off the page and putting it to work in your life, world, and affairs. I don't care how deep what Joel Goldsmith said was, if you don't use it in your life. It doesn't matter how profound Charles Fillmore is if you don't use it in your life. It doesn't matter that Jesus is the way shower if you don't use it in your life. It's practical Christianity, meaning it is intended to be practiced. Captain Obvious. So then we decide, we have to decide We must decide in the moment. We must decide, hear me, hear me, hear me. We must decide to ensure that the decision that we make selects a feeling that is consistent with the fulfillment of the dream. Because there are going to be moments when what appears is inconsistent with the fulfillment of the dream. And so then I must moment after moment after moment not only decide the thought but also decide the feeling. I am telling you that you can decide how you will feel. So if the sun is out or not, I feel good. If there's money in my pocket or not, I feel good. If you talking to me today or not, I feel good. Because the decision to feel good is my choice. I am not the victim of circumstance. I am the victor over circumstance, and my victory comes through what I decide. Are you with me? So then, we have to be willing to make the decisions that are consistent with what we want to experience. Our bulletin says that when we decide, we must also choose a course of action. Does your bulletin say that? Yes. Now, there's something incredibly powerful here in this decision to choose a course of action. When we think about the law of inertia, the law of inertia says an object at rest will stay at rest. But it also says, equally so. Say equally so. An object in motion will stay in motion. Now, the only thing that will upset either an object at rest or an object in motion is an unbalanced force. Are you with me? Now, here is the trippy part. It takes the same amount of energy for a thing. No. It takes the same amount of force for a thing to stay at rest. Pat, I can't believe it. It takes the same amount of force for a thing to stay at rest. Takes the same, hear me. It takes the same amount of force. It takes the same amount of power. It takes the same amount of consciousness. It takes the same amount of God for a thing to stay at rest. It takes the same amount for a thing to stay at rest as it does for a thing to get moving. You don't need more power. You don't need more faith. You don't need more wisdom. You don't need more imagination. Stop praying for more God and do something with what God has given you. It takes the same amount of force to be healed as it does to be sick. It takes the same amount of force to be rich as it does to be broke. It takes the same amount of force to have healthy relationships as it does to have unhealthy relationships. Do something with what God has given you. And so when you introduce an unbalanced force, when you introduce something that knows that it's there to upset you. See, here is the thing. When you pray, the divine discontent or the divine disruption happens. So you're trying to figure why your life is coming apart at the seams, and it's because you're praying for God to help you. And the unbalanced force that is God impacts on the consciousness that is at rest. And if you are tired of God pulling you apart at the seams, then get moving, get moving, get moving. Tell your neighbor, get moving. And so your decision requires you to work. It requires you to take some action. You tell your neighbor to stay in action, stay in action. It takes the same amount of force to stay in action as it does to stay in rest. I hope you get this. Because I know for some of you that just messed up your excuse. The I ain't got enough education people, that just blew your excuse. The I ain't got enough resources people, I just blew your excuse. The I ain't got the right connections folks, I just blew your excuse. It takes the same amount to get moving. Get moving. You have to be willing to stay in action. So the decision means that you will choose a course of action. Now let me just share this with you. Deciding to not make a decision is in fact a decision to stay in the place where you are. So you have to watch the trickery of the soul when it comes to the, well, I'm just gonna wait on the Lord. I'm just waiting for God to show me. Yeah, sometimes you're waiting for God to show you, yes. There is a period of waiting in which you ought to get clear before you move. And sometimes it's just plain old sitting on the fence. And I don't know about you, but sitting on the fence sure ain't that comfortable. Let's keep rolling, let's keep rolling. Because it also says that a decision means that there must be some firmness, some steadfastness, and some determination. I love this Viktor Frankl quote. He says, those who are committed to being the light must be equally committed to the process of burning. What does that mean? That means the work that is involved in the manifestation of your dream is going to exact something from you. It is going to require something from you. It is going to knock you down on your backside. And I love the quote from Les Brown. He says, if life does knock you down, try to fall on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. I would not have you believe that the manifestation of something that God intends to do for you is going to be easy. I don't want you to believe it's going to be easy. It could be. You could be one of those easy rider consciousness. Listen, I love you. I wish I was like you. Mother, I tend to make it challenging, but then I like a good challenge. I like a good challenge, right? I go from never pastoring at all to pastoring a mega church. I just like a challenge. But the decision requires some firmness. It requires some steadfastness. It requires some determination. And I like to describe a determination this way. You've heard me say it before. It's like wrestling a bear. You don't stop when you're tired. You stop when the bear is tired. And so it means that you have to be willing to continue pressing on in the face of the difficulty. It means that you have to remind yourself that failing might not be an option, but it might be something you experience. But don't personalize the failure. Keep on walking, get up, dust yourself off, and keep moving. Life favors those who are able to stick with a thing when the going gets tough, and the going always gets tough. But you got to keep moving. And you have to not be seduced by popular culture. There is something happening in the collective psyche whenever you watch a remodel of a whole home in 30 minutes. I don't know about you, but I've lived through construction. And I've never seen it happen in 30 minutes. But what I do know is there is dust and debris all over the place. It is the same way in our souls. There is dust and debris all over the place when you say yes to manifesting the dream that God has in for you. But on the other side, there is beauty. On the other side, there's joy. On the other side, there's peace. So you have to be willing to persist. Put this in your notes. Persistence is another form of faith. So you got to be willing to do it. Then lastly, it says decide now Because a double-minded person is unstable in all their ways. Now, when it comes to doubt, just know that being of two minds makes it difficult to move in one direction. I'm going to say that again. Being of two minds makes it difficult to move in one direction. So every time you introduce doubt into the decision, it puts another path in front of you. Are you with me? So I want to leave you with this. You have to understand the difference. You have to understand the difference between personal doubt and process doubt. Are you with me? You have to understand the difference between personal doubt and process doubt. I don't want you to have any doubt at all. But if you do doubt, which I don't want you to, but if you must, doubt the personal, don't doubt the process. What am I saying? I'm saying you can count on the principle. It will work if you work it. Now, you might doubt whether or not you can work it, but if you work it, it will work. See, I might doubt whether or not I can pay. Is a B flat a note? Is that a note? I might doubt whether or not I can play a B flat. But the process of playing a B flat is not subject to my personal doubt. See, if I understand how to play a B flat, then the fact that I'm doubting me does not mean that I'm doubting the process, because as I understand it, it doesn't matter where I am around the world. If I understand the process of playing a B flat, it will work anywhere in the universe. Now, I can doubt myself in Chicago, but I can play a deep B flat in Singapore. I can doubt myself on the south side, but I can play a B flat on the north side. They just got me. I like that. They just got me. No, come on, let's go. They excited me real quick right there. And they made me lose my place. The point is, don't doubt. But if you do, trust the process. If you doubt yourself personally, trust the God. If you doubt yourself personally, trust the principle. Because if you can bring yourself back to the principle, 2 + 2 will always give you 4. Are you with me? So that's it. God bless you.